Hello again, I'm James Claiborne, Public Programming Manager with the African American Museum in Philadelphia. I'd like to welcome you to our periodic lunchtime tour, ArtBreak, led by the incredible DJ Duckett, Director of Curatorial Services here at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. ArtBreak is designed as a 1 hour tour to give you an inside scoop on the work of the museum. And so we're so excited to present to you this incredible exhibition presented in Rendering Justice, presented in partnership with Mural Arts Philadelphia. Before I turn the reins over to DJ, I just want to thank you for being here and encourage you to stay in touch with the museum. We have a lot of programs coming up. And now I introduce to you DJ Duckett, Director of Curatorial Services here at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, James, for all you do here at AMP and with these wonderful programs. I'm so happy that you all are with us again. I'm DJ Duckett, and last week we toured Rendering Justice Part 1. We talked about the work in AMP's virtual space, rather, and how art and social practice impact our daily lives. Now, as you know, Art Break is a time to break up your day from school, from work meetings. You just hop on with us for an hour, then go back into your day, hopefully with an artist or some artwork in mind that you'll do a deep dive on a little later or in the future. It's our hope that this hour will spark a little curiosity about these incredible artists and their work and their activism. ArtBreak in real life is designed a little differently than it is in the virtual in the virtual world. It's an informal conversational tour. It's a little different here in our Zoom room, but we do invite you to use the chat feature. You can ask any questions there, any comments, and I will be happy to answer any questions along the way as we go. I would really love to hear from you. So last time when we started our Rendering Justice tour, we spoke about 4 of the works in the exhibition, 4 of the artists in the exhibition: Mary Enoch Elizabeth Baxter, Russell Craig, James Yaya Huff, Michelle Jones, and Deb Willis. Now, if you missed last week, you can easily catch up. We have this wonderful site, and I have to give a shout out to Michelle Cooper and Cooper Graphic Design for all the brilliant work they did on the Rendering Justice microsite. And it's open 24/7. You can go and look at anything that you may have missed. And with that, let's jump into the exhibition title page and take a look at Rendering Justice. And before we talked about the title Rendering Justice and the layered meanings behind it, how the term rendering justice can refer to carrying out justice in a punitive way, or in this case, it can refer to the process of creating justice for oneself, right? Maybe the act of using art to become free of a system that attempts to take one's humanity away. It's creating one's own narrative. And of course, you see what I love highlighted. You see the words "end injustice" embedded in the title as well. Now, all the work that we're going to look at today critically addresses mass incarceration, particularly in Philadelphia, where 70% of the prison population is Black. This work is about refusing to be defined by a system that attempts to strip people of their humanity. Let's enter the site, shall we? James, if we can go to the partners section. I just want to say a word about our wonderful partners, Mural Arts Philadelphia. Mural Arts does so much work around the city of Philadelphia with their beautiful murals everywhere, and an integral part of their mission is accomplished through the Reimagining Reentry Fellowship. The program provides formerly incarcerated artists with the ability to work on mural projects throughout the city, but it also gives these artists a platform for their own art and activism. We sincerely thank Mural Arts and the Arts for Justice Fund. You have our thanks and appreciation. Next, let's navigate over to the guest curator page. Jesse Krimes, he is a Philadelphia-based artist and curator and the co-founder of Right to Return USA. That's the first national fellowship dedicated to supporting formerly incarcerated artists. Jesse reached out in 2019 to AAMP, wanting to partner with us for this exhibition because of our mission, because of our proximity. We're right next to a federal prison right now. And he knew how important and powerful this show would be here at AMP. And of course, we immediately agreed and said yes. I want you to note that Jesse's work and the work of many of the artists in the exhibition is talked about in depth in Nicole Fleetwood's new book titled Marking Time, Art in the Age of Mass Incarceration. I can't say enough about this book. I've learned so much about it. I keep learning, the more I delve into it, I'm constantly awestruck by her discussions. Particularly recently, I was really thinking about, she talks about how the modern US prison system and the modern public museum were pretty much born at the same time in the US in the late 19th century. And it just strikes me that one institution was meant to lock people away because they are seen as having no value. And the other institution is a keeper of objects, that are considered to be extremely valuable. It's just that juxtaposition is just so mind-blowing to me. And if you have any interest, in this subject area at all, this is a must-read. So, Nicole Fleetwood's Marking Time. Let's jump into the artists section. As I noted, the exhibition includes formerly incarcerated artists, but also artists who are impacted by the criminal justice system in other ways, maybe friends, family members, and also artists who just have a passion for reform and social justice. So with that in mind, a couple of the fellows opted to partner with artists who were outside of the program. And last week we talked about an artistic partnership, Dr. Deborah Willis and Michelle Jones. And this time, we're going to explore another rendering justice artistic partnership, Titus Kaphar and Reginald Betts. Before we launch into the video, I just want to give you a little bit of context. Titus Kaphar and Reginald Betts, this is such a beautiful artistic partnership. They're both absolutely brilliant. Betts' journey took him from being incarcerated at 16 to obtaining a law degree from Yale Law School and becoming an acclaimed poet. And he's now working on his PhD and creating work that reclaims lives impacted by the criminal justice system. Titus Kaphar's work is very much about dismantling visual representation in Western art. He'll recreate a Rembrandt or Delacroix and physically cut figures out of the paintings in order to bring attention to other parts of the work. He does this to subvert and to bring out what's hidden in these paintings. It's absolutely fascinating. In the video, also take note, you'll see some of Titus's work in the background so you can get an idea of his practice. He often talks about redaction not just being about crossing things out, but about amplifying what's left behind. And that's important to note. Now, in the video, Titus and Betts are going to be talking about the first iteration of the redaction series. That was completed in 2019 and shown at MoMA PS1. What's currently at AMP now, and what you'll see on the website, is the 2020 series called Redaction Declaration. And we'll talk about it in a moment. But that's just a little background. Let's hop into the video.
The Redaction Project is a collaboration between Reginald Dwayne Betts and myself. Dwayne and I have been friends for a very long time. Our relationship started with a really good argument about Ta-Nehisi Coates.
It's Titus, man. We live in the same neighborhood. We both live in New Haven.
And I figure anybody who I can argue an hour with about Ta-Nehisi Coates is somebody I should have in my corner.
Yeah, so the Redaction Project, essentially what we're doing is trying to combine my poetic vernacular with his visual vernacular.
Dwayne has used his legal skills and his poetic skills to create this document. We worked with the CRC. They gave us these legal complaints.
Our legal documents are often very journalistic. And Dwayne was talking about some of our complaints. in Montgomery and in Ferguson and in Texas and in California, and got this idea to just sort of like make poems out of them.
I thought, what if I took that same language and I stripped it of everything that was superfluous to the grandmother who was locked up because they couldn't pay a $500 fine.
To look at the sort of emotional impact of this issue of money bail on these individuals. What you see is this black paper and this text on the paper, and then the redaction, the removal of pieces of the language, which leaves you with this poetry. On top of that, I made portraits of some of the individuals whose cases were being pleaded. I etched them on top of the paper, and then I made another portrait and etched it on top of that as well.
What we wanted to do is take something that was essentially used to demean people, used to signal that a person was less. And we wanted to turn that whole form into a way to say that a person was more.
What's so exciting about the show that we did through Art for Justice at MoMA, where we displayed redaction and started a series of public conversations about the cases behind the redaction project as well. The existence of the criminal punishment bureaucracy and all of its horror is only allowed to exist because so few people know about it.
I think what Art for Justice is doing is revolutionary. Their willingness to support this project in its infancy, right, just speaks to their vision and their ability to speak the language of artists. When we needed the money to explore the idea, they were willing to take that risk on us.
And then we found ourselves in a position where, actually we could sell the work and get that money back to Art for Justice as a way to say, listen, this is an investment in moving the culture. This is an investment in changing some of the practices of our criminal legal system.
And so for that reason, we are donating one portfolio back to the Art for Justice Fund to raise money for the young artists who are following us.
So as you saw, that was the background to the 2019 redaction series. Now let's talk about the recent work at AMP called Redaction Declaration. Now we Philadelphians, we know all about the Declaration of Independence, has special significance here. I'm going to just read for you part of a piece that was written by Titus and Betts about this piece, Declaration Redaction. Roughly 250 years ago, 56 people signed the Declaration of Independence. It was a contract, a promise, an explanation of what it means to demand freedom. Today, there are many in this country searching for that destination, as if freedom is a country not their own. A declaration is an attempt to give voice to that. But more than that, it is an attempt to document the lives left out of that initial promise. The notion of redaction isn't just about revision. It is about the effort to make things seen that have long been invisible. And of course, this is about prison, because the natural antithesis to freedom is prison. Where else would you find the embodiment of that desire to be outside of a prison cell? Let's go into the gallery and take a look at the work so we can talk a bit more about these pieces. In this work in the gallery, it's so striking. There are screen printed images of the Mural Arts Philadelphia Guild members, all of whom are formerly incarcerated people whose portraits are layered under the Declaration of Independence with parts that have been redacted. So each portrait has a different redaction. So Betts, he has this way, he really sculpts the words in that way. And he creates this texture with the words. And so as a viewer, we're asked, how does that change the meaning of the text of the Declaration of Independence? How is the person pictured affected by this text? what was taken from this person by this system. These are all things that you kind of grapple with, that you're confronted with really when you walk into this gallery. These are large scale pieces, multiple portraits, and together it is just, it's so very powerful. Taking a document that we're all familiar with and just deconstructing it. One of these pieces, Mural Arts is actually going to be using one of these portraits to do a large scale, this is in the works now, a large scale mural. One other thing to note, remember last time we had a discussion about Russell Craig's work and about materiality and how important that was to the work? Well, the materials for this work is so important as well. If anyone is familiar with the process of making handmade paper, it involves several stages of cutting or ripping small paper bits or rags, soaking it, bleaching it, putting it in a blender, creating the pulp, and drying and cutting. The whole process is it's a visceral process and a brutal process in a way. And the paper in this particular work was handmade from prison uniforms and prison towels. So I mean, I just find that so amazing. It really, the DNA of this work, all of it comes from these materials and the people pictured, and then you have the declaration. You have the color of that blue, and you're thinking about the flag and the red, white, and blue, and it's just such a layered piece. And I do love an artistic partnership in general, but this one just resounds. You have a poet, Betts being the poet, and the visual artist, and you have word and you have image, and you can see all of this coming together in this piece. And let's go down to Jared Owens. Jared Owens is currently based in Charleston, South Carolina. He's originally from New York, and his career started about a decade ago as a self-taught portrait artist while he was in federal prison. He eventually became more interested in non-representational work, abstraction. He actually met the guest curator of this exhibition, Jesse Krimes, while in federal prison, and both of them really got kind of obsessed with abstraction and just began reading as much as they could about abstract art. Currently, Jared works with oils, acrylics, ceramics, found objects, reclaimed materials. And again, you'll hear me talk about materiality a lot, and that will very much come into play with Jared's work. Materials are so intrinsic to this work and many of these artists for many reasons, but one is it's really hard to get the materials for them to work with in prison. They have to be extraordinarily creative and using unconventional materials to actually, in some cases, make the pigments for their work, using whatever's lying around. And that creativity became very much a part of their process. Much of Owen's materials focus on dismantling the idea that what society discards can never have worth. I want you to hear that. I'm going to say that again. And this is something that Jared said. Dismantling the idea that which society discards can never have worth. I want you to take that with you. Shall we go into Jared's video and hear from the artist in his own words?
The story this mural tells is just a story of Philadelphia. My name's Jared Owens. I'm a conceptual artist, abstract expressionist, My work primarily deals with the abstraction of things seen on a day-to-day basis. The name of the mural is Guernica. I took a Picasso painting, which was Guernica, and I flipped it into Guernica. You know, his painting originally was more depressing and it was about war and destruction. You could take something like that, turn it around, and make it something happier. First thing that I wanted to do, most importantly to me, was involve kids, the kids that are in trouble, that are in court. I like teaching them the most because I feel like if you involve them in something big like this, it'll change them. You know, to give them an opportunity to drive by this thing and say, hey, I designed this, I was a part of that. I had children help me design a lot of the elements inside the mural itself. The bell was designed by one of the kids. The birds were designed by one of the kids. The eagle was designed by one of the kids. So I wanted to just put things that were specific to Philadelphia inside the mural so that people can identify with it in the city. The love sculpture is in there, Philadelphia specific. The guy with the boombox, that's my design, holding the microphone up to the Liberty Bell, is asking a question to Liberty. And then Benjamin Franklin's actually ringing the bell. This is my first mural. I'm happy with it. I learned a lot. I learned that these kids, some of them are amazing artists. It might not change them now, it might change them years and years from now, but at least they were part of something they can remember.
Let's go into the gallery and take a look at a few of Jared's works. Yes, let's start with that one, Bête Noire. This piece, Owens actually started during an 18-year prison sentence. It's a triptych. Those are 3 separate canvases that are in the piece. And it's hard to tell. This is one thing that it's unfortunate to be virtual, but there's so much texture in these works. He has mixed the paint with dirt from the prison yard and mixed it, especially with that black paint. So this is a really thick, almost impasto texture to these works that's really quite amazing and symbolic of the Black body and the systems of oppression pressing against Black bodies. The literal translation of Bête Noire means Black beast. And the contemporary translation refers to a person or thing that is intensely disliked. So you can feel, and then again, knowing that this piece was done while he was incarcerated, you can really get a sense of what he must have been feeling and facing. These pieces are intensely personal while also tackling social justice. Let's talk a bit about Parchment. The Parchment series, there are 3 pieces in the galleries titled Parchment. And it's an abstract representation of the treatment that people face in Mississippi's infamous Parchment prison. So these pieces reference footage that came from cell phone recordings made from people that were recording the inhumane conditions and the extreme violence that was happening inside of the prison. So I think this whole series of works that are at AMP, it's very different from what you saw in the Guernica mural, which was considerably more upbeat and embodies more hope. These pieces are a stark reminder of what prison life is like and what it does to a person's spirit. These pieces are, it's rough. I mean, being in the galleries with these works, it really makes the viewer understand. His work is simply amazing. And you can see his mastery of form. Even though he moved from doing the figurative work into abstraction, you can feel the tension in this piece, the strain on the muscles, the way that he uses line to create this tension and movement across to this figure, it's just masterful. This is another piece from the Parchment series. You have to remember how textured these pieces are. You can very much see it when you are in the room with these pieces. Oh, this one, if you don't learn, we burn. That one is an abstracted figure. This was a recent piece. It was done during the civil unrest after the murder of George Floyd. Along the edge and throughout the piece, he's burned repetitive patterns around the edges to reference film rolls. For those of us who are a little older, perhaps, you might remember the 35mm film rolls. And he's thinking about repetition, the reoccurrence of police brutality over and over and over, and the ensuing inaction, even in the face of demands for justice and people taking to the streets. If you don't learn, we burn. This is called Last Nerve. And this one, it's a large scale piece, 36 by 48. It's a pretty large piece. And it stops me in my tracks every time I walk past it in the gallery. He uses abstraction so perfectly in this piece that you can really feel it. And, you know, his use of the Black pigment, the way it rises like a smoke, you can feel the silence in this piece, if that makes any sense. Despair in this piece. Yeah, it's just a powerful, powerful piece. So that is Jared Owens. His work is in Gallery 3 in our physical space, but you can revisit this and any of the works anytime in the Rendering Justice site. Michael Ojilaw Tabone. He was born in Philadelphia to blind parents, yet I'm reading his bio. I love the way he wrote this. He was born to blind parents, yet has been blessed with vision beyond his circumstances. He picked up a pencil at age 4 and began to draw as a hobby, which turned into a survival mechanism after he was sent to prison. While in prison, he developed programs to help people get out and stay out of the system and to help prevent young people from going to prison in the first place. He has found through years of experience through music, art, and drama that the most effective ways to break down communication barriers and to build relationships that enable him to reach the youth. Let's go and play his video. Michael Ojilaw.
The story that this work tells is a story of prison and premature death prevention. The beauty about the Mural Arts Fellowship is that they found me. It was my work that spoke. This was, oh, the guy that did the Rest in Peace wall on Hunting Park Avenue. Oh, the guy that inspired 16th Street, the casket. Oh, the guy that wears the jail suit when the art community caught on and called me. Since the beginning of the fellowship, things changed for me the way I approach doing any project because I was raw. But Mural Arts is the opportunity to go from the mud to the mainstream. Mural Arts bridged the gap for me. Hard Knock University and my art pieces are literally pieces of my soul. Hard Knock University is the world's first mobile community crisis event center, or some people call it a mobile care unit. It has a stage on the roof, it has 2 basketball courts, it has a soundproof studio, it has a t-shirt factory, it has a DJ booth, it has a music and video editing center built into one 20-foot unit. What I wanted to do was inspire other artists, like create a piece of art that other artists could participate from, benefit from, develop from, and yet I can still be known as the artist that did this piece. If you look at my capes and you look at the Hard Knock University, they're both community interactive art projects. The community actually becomes a part of the art. I watched it bring people together. I watched art become that universal language every time I pull it out. I'm like, no, God put something in me. The universe gave me something to share. And here we are. My name is Michael O.G. Law Taban, and I am a revolutionary, proactivist, actor, artist, Renaissance man.
OG Law, Renaissance man. Let's go over to the gallery and take a look at some of these amazing banners. Now you saw they took some drone footage of these banners unrolled out on the street. They are huge. They are absolutely huge. There are 5 large-scale works in the show. Some of them are over 70 feet long. Martin Luther King, Meek Mill, Malik Aziz, who was a well-known Philadelphia anti-violence activist who passed away, I believe, in 2020. These pieces are mobile monuments to justice reform leaders and community activists. I want you to imagine OG dragging these 50 to 75 foot long canvas banners across the street of Philadelphia and about 100 Sharpies. And people can just write on these pieces whatever they feel. They can sign their name. Some people, write about their feelings about the people portrayed on the banners. And when OG came to AMP to see the pieces once they were installed, he said that the banners even smelled like Philadelphia. And he didn't mean it in a bad way. It's just that, they're dragged all over the city, and he felt like they really did have the city's essence. And I kind of love that. He makes these massive works in his studio and then takes them around the country to generate, and around Philadelphia to generate conversations. Everything he does is very pointed. It's to engage conversation with people. And then the monuments grow and change as he collects the signatures and has a community in support of criminal justice reform. You see a brother walking around the street in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs around his neck. People are going to ask questions. They're going to approach and say, what is this about? And that starts the conversation, and he can really reach people and talk about his mission and what he refers to as his calling. Like during the uprisings, after George Floyd's murder, his mobile unit, his School of Hard Knocks, was out there giving people a chance to speak and talk about their trauma and frustration without putting themselves in harm's way. And I think that, for me, I think that to an extent, art needs a viewer in order to be complete. It needs someone to experience it and bring their perspective to it in order to be complete. But Michael Taban's work really takes that to the next level, where the community and the viewer kind of is the work. That is his work. I think I saw a couple of questions come up. Are any of the artist's works part of your permanent collection? Are there any plans for future solo projects with any of these artists? We actually did show Russell Craig. He's one of the artists that we talked about in the last ArtBreak. He was featured in Collective Conscious, and he had some absolutely amazing large-scale pieces that were in our galleries. This was about 2 years ago. And I should say that Russell has a mural that's currently hanging on the building, at AMP right now. And we would certainly welcome any of these artists into our permanent collection. Absolutely. What was an unexpected challenge that the curatorial team had in hanging and maintenance of this show? Oh my goodness. Just being, we had very strict COVID restrictions and protocols to keep everybody safe as we were hanging this show. But particularly OG Law, those banners were originally going to be hung on our on the back wall, there's a really huge wall, and they were just too big. They just, it was just unbelievable. But I think I have to give a shout out to Coach Kirk, our facilities manager. Kirk, suggested, well, maybe we hang them in the windows in the front of the building, and that way it would be easier to hang there and people can see them out the windows. So it was a brilliant suggestion. And I told him I was going to make him an honorary curator for that one. But it was definitely challenging. Hanging Titus and Betts pieces, they were large scale. They're hung on the wall using magnets, and the measuring and everything has to be very, very exact. And they're works on paper, so they're delicate. They're not glazed, meaning they're not framed, they're not under glass. So you really have to be careful and thoughtful about where they're going. Betts couldn't come down, so God bless Alexandria Bingham, our curatorial assistant. She was holding a laptop and he was on FaceTime, and we're kind of showing him the walls, and it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. But the Mural Arts team, Brian Campbell, and just everyone really pitched in to hang that exhibition, which was supposed to be, it was originally supposed to be in May of 2020, and we had to postpone until this past fall, just before the city was shut down again. But it's better to be safe. Thank you for your question. Hello, Valerie Lee. I'm new to your ArtBreak series and would like to know if I can access any archived programs. How long have you been doing this? Well, ArtBreak has been going on a couple of years, but it was an in-person program, and I would walk participants through, and we would walk and talk about the exhibition. It's a midday, it was a midday originally once a month program. So this is only the second time that I've done this virtually. So still kind of getting used to navigating the waters of what's usually, a very conversational talk. So it's a little challenging. So we only have one that's available, that's, aside from this one so far, but we plan on doing many more. And I hope that once our world is set up right again, that you can join us in the galleries. But until then, we are here in our virtual ArtBreak. That brings us to close out ArtBreak. Thank you, James Claiborne, Alexandria Bingham, Amber Bays. They handle all the tech and behind the scenes navigation to make this event so seamless. So with that, we'll see you again soon, and hope you enjoyed your ArtBreak and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you.